Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to talk with Oty about cruising, about travel. He's been a lifetime lover of travel, and I put it out recently to talk to people that have wanderlust. So I'm excited to talk a lot about a varied amount of topics, and at the end we'll get his website or any tips he has, and I'll include those in the show notes as well. So welcome, Oty. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, April. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so first of all, when did you feel like you got wanderlust? Take us to that.
It must have been when I was in my early 20s. I had actually decided that I wanted to move away from home. And I was born in Florida, born and raised, in the land of paradise. And I said, you know what, maybe I'll go somewhere else. And my sister was in DC, and she invited me to stay there for a little bit to see what it's like, get a job, see what's life was over there. So when I first moved there, I decided this is great. I mean, you have total freedom to do whatever you want, but with that comes a lot of responsibility. And then I decided to move again, this time officially on my own. So I went out west. I lived in Kansas actually for about 6 years. And while I lived in Kansas, I really found my love of travel. I went on my own to Denver. I didn't have any plans when I was there. I didn't have really anywhere to stay. I had no idea what it was like. And that was a very harrowing experience because I got the two sides of travel. The one is the romanticized kind of, wow, I get a really picturesque view of the world and myself. And then you get the darker side of you have to be aware of your surroundings. And I believe when the pandemic kind of shattered everybody's expectations of travel, it also gave people the wherewithal to plan ahead.
Hmm.
So my real start of my love for travel probably started when I was on my own in Kansas. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, interesting. And so it sounds like you took a road trip then to Denver. You just needed to get out.
It's funny because I took the trip in April of 2020.
Okay.
Naturally, there was only two people on the airplane. The flight was $108 round trip. Now it wasn't a road trip because I had no car, and I decided I was going to just go to Denver, take the train over to downtown, find some place to stay for a weekend, and then go back home. Well, it worked out. I'm still alive and I'm still here, but Denver was a whole experience in those 2 days. Long story short, I had found myself wandering the streets about 3 a.m.
Oh,
And well, here's the thing. When you're by yourself and you're backpacking and you don't have any mode of vehicle transportation, you can either take the bus or you can walk. So I
right.
like to walk. So I walked from downtown. I walked all around, just kind of see where things are, hotels and the city sites and all those good things. And I had met someone who offered to accommodate me for a couple nights so I could just sleep there. It wasn't anything
Yeah.
formal or anything like that. Just pay him and go away. Well, you got to be more cautious when
Oh,
you're meeting strangers because the old adage of um, a stranger danger is a real thing, especially when you're traveling by yourself. That's why I always, when I have clients who are traveling solo, I always tell them be aware of your surroundings. Whatever anybody else tells you, take it with a grain of salt because everybody is different. And you always have to be aware of the people around you and the places around you because yeah, you might find yourself on the street 3 a.m. I luckily did find a beautiful hotel about a mile away. I saw it in the distance.
yay.
It was a it was the Hilton Garden Inn. I always have a special place in my heart for them. And I walked in. I said, I really need a room. And they said, we actually have one left. So I took that room. And when I tell you the best feeling of traveling all day is a shower,
Oh,
is a
yeah.
nice hot shower is one of the best feelings you can get Too bad it's not very Instagrammable, but for the
Right?
person inside, it's a great feeling.
Oh, I can totally relate to that, especially, a lot of times you're trying to save money and you're going somewhere that's a lot of flights. And I'm the same way. Once I get to my room and get in the shower, it's like, oh, it just feels so good. It's like, who knew how good a shower with warm, like you said, hot water, it works, you're safe pretty much. You can shut the door. But same
Hmm.
thing, I tell people a lot, especially in the United States, you can never be too careful. And, I have a lot of photographer friends that like to go out solo. And so they're carrying camera gear. And it's like, you got to have your radar up. You got to have your, just your gut and just be aware of your surroundings. And if you can, it's better to go with someone. Find, somebody even if they're not, say, interested in what you're doing that day, try to treat them like, hey, I'll buy you lunch or, well, something, because then you can be a little bit not watching your back 24/7.
I tell people to find somebody as crazy as you. Because if somebody wants to travel alone, especially internationally, even domestically,
Yes.
even going to Canada, a lot of people like to go to Niagara Falls. I don't know what it is. A lot of folks recently have been asking me if there's a lot of themed groups going to Niagara Falls. I find them and they want to go solo. I said, listen, if you want to go solo, even in Canada, you got to find somebody as crazy as you to go with you, just to cover your back.
Yeah, no kidding. And I recently had two women I knew, same thing. I don't know why they insisted they wanted to go to Niagara Falls, and they went, and the hotel selections, they didn't feel comfortable. They
Yep.
actually went, saw the falls, and I think they got back in their car and drove a little ways out. They were kind of not, yeah, it was just like they said, it was a weird vibe there or something. And the hotel they'd
Hmm.
chosen, even based on reviews, they got there and they just felt it was really not going to be worth the money. They weren't going to feel safe. It was kind of dumpy. So they kind of decided, you know what, it might be worth a little more money to go somewhere else. So
I agree. Finding those places is difficult because you have to have a kind of insider knowledge. And especially if it's not a chain hotel, then you have to dig even deeper. I would recommend whenever I have clients that are, hey, what about this hotel or this one? And it's not something that's an established brand, give them a call.
yes.
They have a number, just call them, say, hey, if I were to come here or if you were to stay here, even talking to somebody as simple as the person on the phone who works there, if you were to stay there, how many nights would you stay? Or what kind of room would you recommend? And then you get an idea of how they operate their hotel, what kind of amenities they have. All that's free. You don't have to dig deep and ask people on the internet who don't know it. Just go to the source directly.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great tip. So tell us about cruising, and you love cruising. I know just from some of the conversations we've had. So what got you into cruising?
So when I was growing up in Florida, I'd always go to the beach and I'd always see the big cruise ships sail away into the distance. And I never gave them really second thought until I had moved to Kansas. I moved to Kansas when I was 22 years old. I was looking for work. And sure enough, there was a job opportunity for Royal Caribbean, of all people. And I said, okay, sure, why not? So I went to the interview, didn't know a thing about cruising, didn't know a thing about anything selling or anything like that. And they offered me a job in their sales department. And after the training, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. The first chance I got to take off some time, I took a cruise. This was in 2019, so it was like
Oh, wow.
the
Yeah.
golden year. And after that, I was absolutely hooked. Then 2020 happened, 2021, everything shut down. And I can tell you from an insider's point of view, um, it was hellish. That's the only way I could describe it. It was absolutely hellish because everything that kind of brought a paycheck to people in the company
Yeah.
had to be financed by different means, debt and things like that. So after the pandemic, I moved up the corporate ladder there, and I got on accounting things and very menial tasks. I said, why don't I just go on another cruise again? And by this time, I was fortunate enough to find my wife. And I told my wife, if you want to go on a cruise, let's go. So we went on another cruise. Excuse me. And it was such a different experience from 2019,
Oh,
even though it was 3 years later. It was such an experience. Like, I got hooked because of the people on board, because of the memories that I made. And once you make those memories, you really can't put a price tag on it. There
mhm.
certainly are things where you can say, okay, let's be a little bit more fiscally responsible and things like that. But once you're on a cruise and you're eating the best food I have ever had in my life, I'll tell you a story about that too. Then you just don't even worry about all that stuff. And the lasting memories you make with people who I still know to this day, and we're like, hey, when are we going on our next cruise? Oh, I'm going on this one. This one, I'm going on this one. So we're trying to coordinate when we
Yeah.
can all go again, and the family and everything you can bring on board. So um, my my love of it really started when I saw the value in it. It's more cost efficient than doing an island hop or doing a land tour, doing any of those things. You can see more of the world. Again, you meet so many people, even if you're an introverted person. They have things for introverted people. They really do. And one of the things I liked most about my last cruise, which I got off about 4 days ago, was they had all of the things that make you feel like a kid at heart. So I was on Virgin's Scarlet Lady. It was a 4 night cruise, short cruise. I went with my sister. My sister went for the first time. And the, I laugh because it's so different from other cruise lines in that, first of all, you don't have to pay for any dinners.
Hmm.
Other lines, they have dinners that you have to pay for,
Yeah.
specialty dinners. But you can order 30 filet mignons and they will just bring them out to you and they don't charge you a cent. The second
Wow.
thing is that, yeah, they have an arcade on board where it's completely free. They have foosball tables, they have air hockey tables, they have board games, they have social clubs where you can go and just order like a hot dog
Yeah.
and we'll order a pretzel and just sit down like a bench style, kind of like a cafeteria kind of thing. But there's no buffet, which is very different because cruise lines really started with that idea that the middle class can have something that's going to really hammer it home for vacation. And Virgin decided, you know what? They've done that for about 40 years now, and it's been okay. But people are starting to notice, like, hey, buffet is great, but having food that's cooked ready for you is
Right.
a better option to go through. So I did a lot of research. I'll tell you, once my passion for cruising started, I did a lot of research on the history of cruising, how it all came about in the United States and in other areas of the world. And I have come to the conclusion that for me personally, in order to get the most value out of traveling, I have to go on a cruise.
Nice. That's good. That says a lot. So what are some tips for someone who's never cruised? Like how, choosing, choosing what kind of cruise? I mean, because like you said, there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of different lines. So where to start?
So, what I would do if I was a first time cruiser is I would seek out help, number
Yeah.
one. You can seek out help online. There's thousands of Facebook groups that you can go to. Don't worry about the cruise line. Don't worry about it. All that stuff is irrelevant. First thing you have to find out is where you want to go. Now, most people would, I would say, in the US would go to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Some people start out in Alaska, but the Caribbean is the go to because there's always something to do there. So you can seek out help online, join a Facebook group, first time cruisers, and there's always going to be somebody there that can help. If you really want get into the nitty gritty of it, you can contact the travel agent. Just look up local travel agents in my area. They don't charge you anything. Everything that you pay is going to be the same price as if you pay it, you know, through the cruise line directly. In fact, sometimes you might even get a discount if you book through a travel agent. It all depends on who you go through. Um, After that, I would have to set my priorities. So if I was a first time cruiser, I would say, okay, is my priority the itinerary? Is my
Right.
priority the food? Am I a foodie? Is my priority the wellness programs? Do they have a fitness center on board? I mean, for example, Virgin
Okay.
Voyages, they're really big on fitness. Listen, They have a jogging track. They have an amazing yoga place. They have aerobics, everything you could possibly imagine when it comes to wellness, because that's one of their key pillars. Versus if you want to go on something that's more traditional, you want to go on a roller coaster at sea, there's cruise lines that have it. You want bumper cars, you want ice skating, rollerblading. I mean, it's
Oh my,
overwhelming,
that's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
It's overwhelming, but they have all those things. So, whatever you can picture in your mind as an ideal vacation, whether you're on land or not, there probably is a line that has those things. Me personally, I don't know if you can tell, I like food. And so I like to have the best kind of
Yeah, I
cuisines
do
so
too.
I can tell my friends at home. Exactly. And I can show my friends and family, like, hey, you got to come with me next time so that we can try all this great food. But I'll tell you honestly, and I still remember this, the best food I've ever had on board a ship or land, really, was a cooked venison with dark chocolate and blueberry compote. I don't know
Whoa.
why it works so well, but dark chocolate with venison meat was mind blowing.
Oh my
It blew my
gosh.
mind. And funny enough, the restaurant that it came from was called the Test Kitchen. So, for example, on Virgin, this is the only brand that has it. Virgin has a restaurant called a Test Kitchen. You don't have any choice on what they bring you besides two things. So they'll bring you out 5 courses, and the only course you get to decide is if you want venison or beef for the third
Okay.
course.
Right.
My sister got beef, and I got venison. Didn't think anything of it. The first 3 courses were amazing. So this one came out, and I said, "This is the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just the plating and everything was so surreal." And then I tried it, and if I could get the recipe, I'm sure it's online somewhere, but it changes your life. It really
Yeah,
does.
no, it is. It's the food does. I mean, I'm one of those people too. It's like I can't watch the food channel too long because then it's like I get hungry. I literally feel like I can taste it. And it's like, okay, where
Mhm.
can I go get this? Yeah, I'm totally a foodie. It's like if I could have all the different items on the menu, I like to taste and sample everything too, so that that sounds amazing because someone just brings it to you and you're gonna try it.
And one of the great things about cruising is, unlike a restaurant at a hotel or just a restaurant in general, a lot of people don't know this. You can get as much of the stuff as you want. Like if you go to the main dining room and you see that you like, the traditionally they have a French onion soup, they'll have a salad, they might have a steak for the entrees. You don't have to limit yourself to just one of each. You can get 30 different things, and they're happy to bring it out because the more full you are, the more happier you are. They don't expect any kind of gratuity or anything like that. It's, of course, if you want to, nobody's going to say no. But you can have as much as you want. And that's the thing about cruising. If you're bored or if you're hungry, you're not doing it correctly. There's
Right.
always something to do, and there's always some place to eat. And my sister, God bless her, she doesn't eat a lot, but when we were on that cruise for 4 days, we probably ate once an hour.
Oh
And
my
I made her
gosh.
go. I said, "Come on, we're gonna go to this one. We're gonna get some." I mean, I had blue. What was it? It was a burger that was green. I don't know how they made it green. It wasn't food coloring. It was some sort of natural thing. It was green, and it was a vegetarian burger. And it was fantastic. It
Oh
was the
my
best burger I've
gosh.
ever had. And she tried it for the first time. She tried a lot of new things. I tried octopus.
Oh
You ever have
wow.
octopus before?
No, uh-uh.
The way they season it, it tastes like a carrot. It was fantastic. You would
That's
think
amazing. Yeah.
it was the best thing ever, and I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I can't go on any other kind of vacation. That's the only one I can go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say now they've got you for the food on that one. Oh, that's
Yep.
amazing. So you mentioned earlier your sister's an introvert, and I am definitely kind of introverted. It's like I think it's more the idea of like all this huge ship full of people, and like you hear, and maybe it's more the traditional cruises where it's like you have to go to dinner and you have to sit with a table of people you don't know, and then there's a dance and a party, and that's a big part of cruising because, there's miles of, you're just going to be seeing the ocean. So, what are some tips for introverts on cruising?
So believe it or not, I have the same kind of qualities my sister has. Not to the extent that one would say I'm an introvert, but whenever you're going on a cruise, I mean, you can have a cruise ship that will hold 6,000 people, or
Yeah.
you can go on a cruise that holds 200. Depending on the expertise of the person you're going to book through. Whether you book through yourself, you have to do all this research yourself. Or if you book through a travel agent, then you can rely on their expertise. But when we went, for example, it didn't feel crowded. My
Oh,
sister will
nice.
attest to it. It didn't feel crowded at all. At any time of the day, the most crowdiest part was the ice cream. You get free ice cream on board. That was the crowd. But that was what, 5 minute wait. But going back
Yeah.
to the question, for introverts, I would recommend just getting the things that you want to get. A lot of folks will say, I'm just going to stay in my room, order room service for the all nights, and never leave my room. You can do that. We ordered 11 plates of food for
Wow.
$7. I mean, it was,
That's
you can do
crazy.
that. But there will always be something that will spark your imagination. And that's how you know you have a good vacation. Because when you read the daily planner, and if you don't want to talk to the person who will clean the room, they will slide it under the door and you don't ever have to talk to them. But you'll read through that list or you'll use the app because we live in a modern world where the app just tells you
Right.
what everything is. And something will say, I kind of want to do this speed jigsaw puzzle. Okay, let's go. Let's see what it's like. And I tell you, when me and my sister went to the speed jigsaw puzzle challenge, there was maybe 10 people there,
Oh,
and I heard
wow.
probably two sentences from each group, and it was nice because it was peaceful. Everybody
Hmm.
got along, and the staff will always encourage people to open up a little bit. That's why they have little games that they throw. And even when you're walking around the ship, there will always be something happening. I'll give you an example. On Celebrity, they have what's called the Martini Bar. Martini Bar is a section close to the main atrium where it's more of like an elevated experience when it comes to having martinis. Usually around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. is when they start a show.
Oh,
Okay. It's
wow.
like an impromptu kind of show. I highly encourage anybody to look it up on YouTube. Martini Show Celebrity Cruises. They will start throwing these bottles up in the air. They will catch the bottles. They'll have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different cups. They'll pour it into a martini, all different colors. And it blows your mind. It
Yeah.
blows your mind because when you're by yourself and you're just kind of walking through, kind of feeling your own emotions, you're like, that's pretty interesting. And somebody else will come up next to you and be like, what do you think about that? And, well, and that'll open you up. For me personally, I tried my best to get my sister out of the introvert mindset, and it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. But there were sections I saw where that little glimmer of light came through when she was relaxing on a lounge chair by the pool or just dancing to the music for the DJ. And those are the times that I'm going to remember with her too, for
Oh,
sure.
nice. Yeah, that's good. Well, and it's nice to know, like you said, there's so much space on it on the ship that there's places to go where you're not going to be always surrounded by a crowd of people. You can find your chair or your hammock on the deck and just chill out or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I think
There was a
that's
little nook.
great.
One quick thing. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
just love to
no, I
talk about.
love it.
When we were on the Virgin ship last week, there was a section when you're going past the smokestack, it's like the funnels, where it's all these private cabanas. All the private cabanas, of course, we're not wealthy people enough to afford these nice cabanas.
Right. Yeah.
But in between, I forget what numbers they were, but in between one of the cabanas was a little section where you can just look out and see the whole ocean.
Oh,
You
wow.
didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to do it. But if you were lucky enough to stay over there, it was the most secluded spot I found on the whole ship. And I stayed there probably for an hour and a half, just overlooking when we were leaving Key West.
Oh,
And I brought
wow.
my sister. I was like, come on, I got to show you this spot. And I remember I brought her to the spot. She didn't think much of it. And then I left to go walk around. I went back to the room. I took a 30-minute nap. I came back. I can't, she was still there.
She was still there.
I
Yeah.
thought, I thought she didn't even care about it, but she said, "I love it here, and I'm by myself. People walk by, nobody bothers me, and I found that rather enjoyable. I really did
Oh, that's
because
great. Yeah, and you
it was
found it
something for
for
her."
her. Yeah, that's really special. Oh, that's awesome. So what are three things you always pack when you go cruising? Because if you're a first timer, you may not think of what things you may need. I mean, I know a lot of people like the idea too that whatever you take, you only unpack once for the whole trip. You're not having to repack like you do when you're doing a interior tour or bus trip or whatever.
Correct. So let me preface this by saying if you are driving to a cruise port, wherever it may be in the United States, it's not like TSA. You can bring as much stuff as you want, as many luggage. I'm deadly serious. One time somebody said if I can take a trunk, like those old
Yeah,
antique
right.
trunks.
Yeah,
If I could take a trunk on board for a transatlantic, I said, listen, as long as you can hold it in your hands, it's on board. It doesn't even. So you can bring as much stuff as you want. But in my experience, obviously, you have to bring your travel documentation. If you don't have a passport, you get a passport. If you want to expedite it, it's like $165, I think, or $180 as a recording. Everybody should have a passport. Number two, don't bring extra hangers. Okay, that's one. Bring magnetic hooks.
oh,
Magnetic hooks are very valuable because if you are an introverted person and you don't like talking to the room attendant, which I mean, honestly, they're very friendly people. But if you don't want to ask for extra hangers, then bring those magnetic hooks because they'll come in handy for more than just clothes. I mean, you can hang anything up on there.
wow.
The second thing I would always bring is your charger because if you want to buy a charger on board, sometimes they're not available. And the reason I say that is because the stores on board the ships, I don't know why they make this law. It's a law that they have to follow. They're not open when they're in port. So if you're in Key West or if
Oh,
you're in Cozumel, wherever, the ship's stores are not open. The casino is not open. It's just a law they have to follow.
right.
So bring all the essentials there. And the last thing, it's a good question. The last thing I would bring is a bottle of water, like one of
Oh, yeah,
these.
yeah. Tumbler things. Yeah.
Definitely bring some sort of portable water system. Depends on which cruise line you go with, but if you get thirsty and you don't want to ask somebody for something, and you just grab something from your room, right? You grab something from the minibar, you want to grab a Coke. That's not free. That stuff
No,
is not
right.
there for decorations. That stuff there so you can grab it and they can charge you for it.
Right.
And a funny story, I won't mention the cruise line, but I was so thirsty. This is the reason why I mention it. We got to Fort Lauderdale. I was so incredibly thirsty after a day of travel. We got into the room and there was this magnificent bottle of water and two cups. And I thought, wow, what a blessing that we got these free water cups. And I drank the whole thing in one go, and it was $8 a bottle of water. Okay.
Wow,
drank,
eight
drank
bucks.
two of them, $16 for a bottle of water. It should
Wow.
be borderline criminal. But that's why I recommend bring something portable. If you want to bring, uh, something plastic. People really don't bring a lot of plastic on board ships because they're trying to shy away from single
Yeah.
use plastics. Bring something that you'll bring and bring home. And it'll save you in the long run because you can bring it off the ship,
Oh, that's
so you
true.
don't have to
Yeah.
pay magnificent amount of money when you get off board the ship. But something portable. So I think we covered those, right? So magnetic hooks and your travel documents and your cup.
And those are
I
good
think that's it.
tips, the magnetic hooks, because, to be able to use that, it frees up space in your room, I'm sure, because, a lot of times your cabin isn't super roomy, so it gives you more space if you can hang things up.
That's correct. Oh, last thing, bring cash. Just a
Oh,
couple dollars. I mean,
cash.
you don't have to
Yeah.
bring. Don't bring big bills. Bring little bills. You never know when you're going to need it. When you get off board a ship, you want to buy a magnet. My wife loves magnets, and we buy magnets every single new place we go to. You should see my fridge. It looks like it's a
Oh,
library in there, just
oh,
places
that's
we go.
so cool. That's a great
Bring
idea because
cash.
magnets are small too, so they're easy to pack in your bag.
Correct. Correct. Exactly.
So what was an unexpected experience you've had on a cruise ship?
So, an unexpected experience was It was on my wife and I's first cruise together. So I've been on a cruise by myself, but my first cruise, my wife and I, we went to the club. We're not much of a dancing kind of people, we like to have fun and whatever. But an unexpected thing is that if you are, let's say, if you're very generous with your gratuities on board, and you like to play that kind of thing, then the service that you get is unparalleled. Unparalleled. I have pictures, but I'm not going to show them. But the pictures essentially show that when you buy a drink package, now if you go on a traditional cruise line, you should get a drink package if you find it, worth your time, if you're going to drink that much. But needless to say, my wife and I definitely made good use of the drink package in that the policy states you're supposed to have one per person per drink, naturally. Some cruise lines have limits, others don't. This particular one did not have a limit. And as the nights went on, because this was a 6-night cruise, as the nights went on, we found that we were able to convince the bartenders to bend that policy somewhat so that
Right.
when we would bring our friends from dinner, who we also did not know at first, but then we decided that we were going to invite them to the club, we would have 6, 8. At one point, we had 12 drinks lined up so we can all have fun because
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what you do when you go on a cruise ship. You have fun. One time, they ran out of shot glasses for us. I felt bad, but we had 12 literal drinks set up, and everybody was having a great time. And it was more than just that. It was the fact that the staff on board most cruise lines, I would say the vast majority of cruise lines, are so geared toward making people's vacation the best that they possibly can. If you go to, I'm not going to badmouth like, lodgings and
Right.
land hotels,
Yeah.
but when you get on a cruise ship, the ultimate goal of both the cruise line and the staff is to make sure that you come back.
Yeah.
It's to make sure that you have a great time. And so they will always do their best to accommodate. And I would always tell people, listen, if you're a first time cruiser, tell them that you've never sailed before, and they'll always do something special to make you comfortable. Because if you don't tell them, then they don't know.
Right.
I'm not going to say that they're going to treat somebody like, oh, they're an experienced cruise, like they've done this before. But even now, and another little secret is that whenever you make a reservation for a cruise, you should tell if you're booking it directly, you should tell the person you're talking to. But if you're booking through a travel agent, tell them. And the cruise line can actually make a little note on there that the
Oh,
person is new to
nice.
cruising, and then
Yeah.
they always show a little bit of an extra emphasis to make them more comfortable.
Right. Make them feel welcome. I like that.
Right.
Right. Because they know if it's their first time, this is kind of make or break. And if you have a great time, you're probably going to try another cruise, hopefully with the
Exactly.
same cruise line. Because there's so many places they're taking people now. I mean, the Greek islands, South America. I mean, there's some really interesting itineraries out there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. My sister's going to the Greek islands next year. I'm
Oh, she
very jealous
is.
because her first cruise was a Key West and Bimini back to Miami. It was a 4 night, just very straight, simple. And then now she's like, I want to go to Athens and I would like to see all of the Greek islands. And I'm like, I am so
Wow.
jealous of you that you get to go and do that. But she goes from a 4 night to an 11 night. So, hey, if she's happy with it, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that is very cool. Oh my gosh. So when you take shore excursions, are there opportunities to meet locals as well, or not so much?
Yes, if depending on the line, generally they like to trend this way now. Is the cruise line contracts out with the different tour operators. They vet them, they make sure that they're straight and narrow. And the way that they reinforce that contract, continuously is they get feedback from guests. So whenever you take a short excursion through the cruise line, you are almost certainly to find the tour operator be a local,
Oh,
somebody who
nice.
will tell you about the culture and their life and their upbringing. When my wife and I were in Grand Cayman, We took a snorkeling with the stingrays.
Wow.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
lovely. It's terrifying, but it was, you know, it was great. But the people who were there, I remember I was just kind of over the sun. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go back into the boat and I'm just going to hang out with the lady who's there just eating some snack, whatever.
Right,
It was one
right.
of the people who, with the tour operator. And I asked her, I said, so did you grow up here in Grand Cayman? She said, I grew up here since I was a little kid. My father sold us this boat
Oh
so we
my
can start
gosh.
this business. And she told me all about her childhood and how they came from, I mean, just abject kind of different parts of the world. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh
it's just
yeah.
you get that idea. And so it depends on the excursion you go on, but you're almost certainly guaranteed to meet locals and learn about the culture that you're in. And we learned about the next one with the Cozumel. We learned about how they harvest the agave plant and the different types of tequilas and
Oh my
how to
gosh. Wow.
distinguish between what is actual tequila and what is just kind of like whatever. And then oh god, there's something like that. We went to a honey sanctuary. We learned about
Oh wow.
a honey bee that has no stinger, and we tried a honey that was just like blew my mind kind of thing. So
Yeah.
you learn a lot. You learn a lot. That one was fun. But I will say this: there are certain lines where that idea of cultural enrichment through contracting with those locals is more strong than others. So, for example, and I keep going back to Virgin. I'm sorry. I
No,
got to talk
no,
about it
you
because
have if you like them, yeah, that's that you need to share that.
they
Yeah.
have such a strong sense of community wherever they go. They're very conscientious about the environment that they everybody affects the environment in some
Oh
way,
yeah.
but they want to minimize that kind of negative impact. And you know, whenever people are on board, they eat. I'll tell you honestly, if you're at a buffet, you can put as much as you want. You can eat one bite of it and throw the whole thing away.
Oh, I know.
To me personally, it's terrible. It's terrible. But the way that Virgin does it is they will serve you food. You eat the food. I mean, you think like, oh, this is a small portion. Like, what am I going to do this? But then you eat it and you're like, wow, that was actually quite filling. And they do that strategically. I mean, they
That's
have people
smart.
who have,
Yeah.
and then with the excursions, for example, they have, oh, they have so many great things. It's unbelievable how many great things they have. So they have. Well, let me just give you one example. The hammocks. Okay, you go on any Google search, you look up Virgin Voyages hammocks. These red hammocks that are on all the balconies, everybody loves them. Where do they come from? Well, they're not made in some factory somewhere where it's just like, you know, they are all 100% handmade in Thailand. They have
Wow.
a video of how they found this village in Thailand to where the industry around that village was kind of encroaching on them, and they were, you know, they were farmers, hunter
Right.
gatherers for a long time.
Yeah.
So somebody somewhere at Virgin decided to get in contact with these folks, and they were like, why don't you guys find a way to make hammocks that are fireproof, and then we'll pay you for them, and you know, start a new industry. And they had absolutely no clue how they were going to find this fireproof thread
Yeah.
so they could, but somehow they made it work. And they have enriched this village to where, I mean, you see the YouTube video.
I'll have to look it
They
up.
can
Yeah.
start sending people to college, they start sending their kids to school, and it has completely changed the face of that village. And that's just one example of how they're conscientious about the world and how they want to improve it and not take away from it. They want to produce and not consume as much. That's
And
just
I think that's huge. I love that story actually that you just shared because I think during the pandemic, because we saw, unfortunately, everything got shut down, whammo, and we saw these images of people getting trapped on the cruise ship or the employees not being able to get off and go home. It kind of impacted, I think, our overall thinking of these cruise ships and to a negative, unfortunate end. And so to hear these stories, I mean, that's fabulous.
oh, you're right. And I don't blame anybody who had that negative
I don't
idea.
either, right?
It was a wild time. It was a wild time. In fact, I'll tell you a story. There was one particular cruise line that was stuck off the coast of South America. This was in late February. I believe it was late February of 2020. So it just kind of started out. Maybe it was early March, but it was into the pandemic
Yeah.
where people knew this was going to be a problem for cruise lines. Most cruise lines at that point had ceased operations. I mean, they totally just shut everything down.
Right. Right.
This particular cruise line decided, let's not shut down yet. So they went out from South America and they were doing their thing going down to Argentina. And they were in such a terrible state. There were so many infections on board that the CDC had designated a cruise ship as a country. And they designated them as a country so that essentially it was not able to be saved. Like you couldn't get helicopters to come in, you couldn't barely even get aid to the cruise ship. They were running out of
Right.
supplies.
Supplies.
Finally, they were able to. This was weeks. I mean, they were on at sea for way longer than what they should have. And that was, I believe, was the final nail in the coffin for the cruise line industry. And that changed the perception of people to say, all right, we're done cruising. We're not, cruising is done
Right. Yeah.
forever, 50 years. But I'll tell you, when it came back, the efforts that they made to ensure that everybody was safe and sound were just unbelievably strong. They stopped a cruise one time because there was two crew members that were sick
Oh,
on the
wow.
whole cruise. They canceled the whole thing because two people had coronavirus. And I mean, that just kind of shows you they took it seriously
Yeah.
after a while. They took it seriously. But now, through the recovery, it's like the memories of folks have just said, you know what? We could go on a cruise. It's not a problem. Like, what's 2020, 20? But they really, I mean, they have touch stations now everywhere you look. You have your hand sanitizer. They encourage people to wash their hands. In fact, one of the restaurants on Virgin is a Korean barbecue restaurant. Was fantastic, by the way.
Sounds good.
Before you come in, you wash your hands. They have a sink station right there.
Yeah.
It's just traditional kind of Korean food, how they do, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
wash your
Right.
hands.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Just the way that they handled every kind of um, issue when it comes to health and safety. Their policy with safety is number one. I haven't seen a cruise line do it like since.
Yeah. Well, and again, people do. We want to get back out and travel and see the world. And I think you touched on it earlier that you really feel that cruising is a really economical way to see a lot of places that you might not get to see, eat foods. I mean, having those could easily be $50 to $100 dinners that you're describing in a sit-down restaurant that are included in your price of the cruise.
That's correct. And it was one time I remember I was eating ramen because they have a
Oh,
this is on Virgin.
yeah.
They have a what was it? It was a delicious kind of ramen that we had one time in Kansas, and I remember it was $27. It was like 27.95. It was a ramen joint. It was very nice. But on board the ship, they made it in about I want to say 6 7 minutes, and it was completely free. And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, this could easily be like a $30 bowl of ramen that I could just eat whenever I
Right.
want."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what
It
are
was
three destinations or routes that you want to think about for cruising this year or next?
Wow, that is an excellent question. So I've always wanted to go see Barcelona. I've always wanted to go see Rome, and I've always wanted to go see Australia. Now, those places are not on the list for this year. They're on my dream list. But this year, we're actually going in a couple months now, in April, we're going to the Virgin Islands. So we're going to St.
Oh,
Thomas, St. Martin. We're going to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I can't wait to go to San Juan because I was born down south in Broward County, Florida, and I grew up with so many Puerto Ricans, and they always tell me about the mofongo and all the great food that they have in Puerto Rico, and I've never been. It's literally
yeah,
a
it's
hundred
not.
miles from where I was.
Yeah,
It
right.
was so close, and I can say now I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna have all the food and experience all the fun. So I can't wait to go to Puerto Rico. I can't wait to go to St. Martin. St. Thomas, they have a really awesome sky tram,
Oh,
I don't even know
wow.
what it's called. You go up on top of a mountain, you can oversee the entire city, see the cruise port. I mean, these are the kinds of things. If you were to pay for them out of pocket, you'd easily be out 5 grand. It's a no brainer for me, kind of thing. Oh, and we
Right.
go to the Dominican Republic. My in laws are going, and they can't wait. There's
Oh,
a
wow.
section in where we're going where you can see the little monkeys. It's an excursion. There's like little monkeys that come up to you, and you start feeding them and stuff. Where am I going to
Yeah,
do
where are
this?
you
I mean,
gonna do that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
yeah, it's gonna be a heck of a trip. We're gonna have all the pictures. I mean, on this 4 day cruise, I took maybe because it was a work thing for me, so I had to do. I didn't have to do it per se, but I took I think over 300 pieces of media. It was like 150 videos, 150 pictures, and I
Wow.
just felt like I was just going. I was just like a photographer all day, all throughout the ship, middle of the night. The thing about cruising, there's no curfew. You
Oh,
could be
that's
up
true. Yeah.
all night, just walk around. People might, staff might be like, "Why is this guy not asleep?" But the great thing is, they won't do nothing to you. They'll just look at you, and you just keep on walking. One funny story. I'm sorry to tell you all these
No,
stories,
no,
but
I like it.
one great story when we were on our first cruise together, my wife and I. After the club closed, which generally is about 2 in the morning, is when the casino also closes. So, I mean, what else is there? You have a club and casino. Everything was closed. So the people who were dancing with us at the club, we didn't want to go to sleep because who does? Everything was closed as far as food goes, so we couldn't eat anything. So we were like, okay, let's go to the pool. Let's put a bunch of chairs together and a bunch
Oh
of tables
yeah.
together and play cards. So somebody had cards. I mean, there was 12 of us lined up. My wife can attest. 12 of us lined up with chairs, and we're all playing cards. And I remember the bridge or somebody must have spotted us. There was a spotlight, and they kept turning the spotlight on. And I was just like, I think they know that we're here, guys. And one
Right.
of them said, it doesn't matter. They can't do anything. So I said, you guys have a good night. I got up and left. I don't know what came of it, but it was about 3 in the morning by the time we got home or back to the room.
Right,
And it
right.
was those are the memories you make forever. I love it.
No, it sounds amazing. So what are Odie, do you advise people on cruises yourself? Are you still in the business of being a travel agent? Do you have a blog? How are some ways that people can reach out to you?
So if folks want to know more about me, I have an Instagram. It's OC Voyages. Just OC is like Orange County, Oty Curt Voyages. Same thing on Facebook, OC Voyages. We're growing a community there. I'm on Threads. Listen, Threads is new. I love it. I don't know if anybody knows about it, but I love Threads. And I am a travel advisor. I'm a travel advisor with Expedia Cruises in Wichita,
Oh,
but I
nice.
am my own independent contractor with them. So if anybody has any questions, free consultations. Just like you, Miss April, I love talking to people. If anybody has any questions, they can reach me there.
Okay. Is there a website you want to throw out or an email address, or do you want me to just put that in the show notes?
That would be fine in the show notes. It's OCURT at ExpediaCruises.com or Voyages by OC at gmail.com.
Oh, I love this, Odie. Thank you so much. It's been so fun. I feel like I went on vacation today, hearing about the food and
We gotta go.
I
We're
know we
going.
gotta
It's gonna
go.
be a fantastic. It's awesome. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
I'll meet your sister and we'll have a great time. It sounds amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, April.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Take care. Bye.